Bearcat Bounce Podcast, back at it again. I am Brent Young, and as always, it's a beautiful day in the Indianapolis neighborhood, as well as Cincinnati. That means Chad Brendel and Aaron Smith are joining me. Chad, Aaron, gentlemen, how are we?
Better than you.
Better than you. I'm hanging in there. Yeah, I'm hanging in there. I didn't have a great day, but such is life sometimes.
Yes, Aaron.
I'm here.
Yes,
I'm trying to get my energy back up. Like when you're at a funeral all day, and then the wake afterwards and all that. Like energy is you're not too hyped up. Is not the way you spend the day. So I'm trying to get my energy up. Brent's trying to get his energy up because he was in Texas and Florida for like a week, and you know what that means.
Yeah, you can put and then all of a sudden Aaron's doing a surprise fill in on the Memphis preview, so I think you can put two and two together there.
Brent was in health and safety protocols over the past couple days.
We're back.
I guess I'm gonna be the I'll be the energy hype guy tonight.
There we go.
We're gonna need your energy tonight.
We could use you, but even with the funeral, the wake is supposed to be where the celebration of life type ordeal, where you kind of remember the good times. So hopefully
I'm just saying my energy.
Raise up.
We did that. We remembered all the times that she used to yell at me throughout my childhood. My childhood best friend's mom passed away, and we were talking about that. Like, kids now don't understand. Like that, his mom raised me just as much as my dad did. Like, I was at his house constantly, and he was at my house constantly. Like, you got that connection. And Aaron's talked about this. He just lost the parent of one of his best friends. And like, when you really get down to think about it, man, like they were a massive part of raising us the way that we are, like the way that we were as children. I don't think kids get that anymore.
Right.
No, you don't.
Because they live with each other virtually.
Yeah.
They do it all online.
Right. So
especially with the metaverse coming, it'll be a nice little hangout spot there.
They just don't have, like, you're not somebody else's parent is not your acting parent like 40 hours a week.
Right.
In hindsight, I feel like my parents really appreciated the fact that I was gone like three nights a week, 4 nights a week.
It's not the same anymore, man. Like I barely know any of Kelsey's friends' parents.
Right.
And like that was a huge thing when we were young.
And I mean, the coolest part is when you get older and you do see those parents, and then you can have drinks with those parents and kind of, let loose a little bit with them and be like, wow, we were kind of just jackass back in the day, weren't we? And then they just could pile on stories about all the different things you guys used to do back in the day.
How much of an idiot you were.
Oh, yeah.
I like how you guys are talking past tense, like you're not still idiots and assholes.
Oh, I'm still an idiot. I'm just not somebody else's parents' responsibility.
If you had a little like Koopa Troopa thing behind me for the past month, you'd definitely say this guy's an idiot. Yeah. So yes, no, I agree. All
right, let's get to the sponsor. We got something big coming, Brent.
Hey, you know what? It's Danco transmission. It's still Danco. Danco's number one. It's our guy. Danco Auto Transmission. You guys need to head there. You can still go there and mention the BVP, mention BCJ. You can mention Chad, Aaron, myself. Mention the Bearcats. Just say you heard about Danco. $10 off an oil change. But guess what? They added something else. Chad, tell me what happened. Tell me what else Danco added.
There's our guy Joe from Danco. It's Danco Joe. Danco Joe he's lost his mind. Okay, he's lost his mind. So on top of being able to get the discount on an oil change, starting last night, okay, every weekend through the basketball season. So the Memphis game on Sunday, January 9th, and the Wichita State game on the 16th, Tulsa on the 20th, East Carolina on the 30th, Houston, February 6th, Tulsa, February 12th, Temple, February 20th, South Florida, February 26th, SMU, March 3rd. Okay. The number that the Bearcats score the weekend before we do the BBP. So last night, for example, the Bearcats scored 80 points against Memphis. You get $1 per point on any service or repair totaling over $100. So if the Bearcats score 80, $80 off.
Joe.
That is one hell of a deal for anyone needing maintenance or repairs. You just have to show that you're a BCJ member. Obviously, you need to be supporting Bearcat Journal. So the discount number is going to be different every week. And Joe had to be watching that game last night going, can they slow it down a little? How many threes are we going to make in this damn game? $80 on any service totaling $100 or more. You get $80 off this week at Danco Transmission. All you have to do is show your Bearcat Journal. You pull it up on your phone, show that you're a member, logged into the site, and Joe will get you hooked up with $80 off.
You know
his
what?
Financial advisor's got to be shitting his pants.
You know what? Joe probably was watching the Bearcats play against Miami and Monmouth. After those two games, I think they scored the 50s in both. He was probably like, you know what? This could be a good idea. This could be a nice idea. And then he put it on the back burner for a little bit. And then the Tulane game happened. Bearcats only scored 60. He's like, yeah, I think I'm going to do this deal. Let's do this deal. And then before then, it's too late. In back-to-back games where Bearcats are blowing it out of the water, and now here we are. So
$80 off.
Big
all
time.
week
Danco.
At Danco.
Danco.
It's massive. Massive.
It is. Hit him up. The man. The myth, the legend.
Hit him up.
Mr. Joe.
I was right there with you.
well, let's talk about it. Let's talk about the fact that Joe could have either had to do $77 off, or he would have had to do $80 off now. That is the 2-point totals that the Bearcats had the past two games. 77 in a victory over SMU, 77-60. And then, of course, the thriller of a game yesterday, 87-80, in the loss to Memphis. Still just an absolutely phenomenal basketball game. Guys, this team has really flipped a switch. They're playing a whole nother level of basketball, kind of similar to what they were doing in Kansas City. It seems like that sort of flow is back. The team effort, everything behind it is back. Just before we break down both games, kind of just general observation that you've seen, kind of started probably after halftime of Tulane, but what's kind of been the turning point up to now with this basketball team? They look completely different. They're clicking on all cylinders. And when they're playing together, when they're playing positive, it seems like the shots are falling as well.
Well, I know we've talked about it on we talked about it on the nightcap, but it's got to be the halftime of the Tulane game, because since then they've been playing the best basketball that we have seen this team play, both offensively and defensively. I mean, to hang in there with a juggernaut of that is Memphis. Even if they haven't been able to put it together, I mean, they haven't been able to put it together on paper. On paper, they are a juggernaut. I don't think that's arguable. But you know, they were able to hang with Memphis until the last 10 seconds of the game.
Basically, yeah.
Until Tyler Harris became a
3-point game with 4 seconds left. So,
yeah. You know, I mean, they obviously took care of business against. God, it evades me who they even played the game before Memphis.
SMU.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a long day. But even in the second half, they of Tulane, they played very good basketball. So to see them finally starting to make shots, finally starting to rebound well, like whatever that first half was against Tulane, I don't know. It was a wake-up call in the locker room at halftime, and that has been the spark that has fueled the fire here over the last 5 halves of basketball for Cincinnati.
I mean, I don't think the wake-up call is all that difficult to figure out. Joe says he wished he was giving $88 off. Us too, Joe.
Yeah, Joe.
Us too.
Me too.
But it's effort related. It's the way that they're going about their business looks a lot more like it did back at the beginning of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it absolutely is because teams are, for some reason, playing less zone. We did see Memphis play a little bit of it. We saw in the second half, SMU tried to slide into some zone on them, and it kind of threw off their rhythm a little bit. But this is a team that's pretty good in man-to-man. And when they get in, when they get into a rhythm, when they're playing downhill, when they have a guy like Jeremiah Davenport just tossing in threes from wherever he stood for most of that game, that helps as well. But by God, not by good, that's a good deal. By God, that's a good Ed. Come on, Ed. They're playing with a lot more confidence. They're playing with a lot more energy. And it's amazing what happens. Coaches talk about this all the time. When you're not thinking, when you're allowing yourself to get lost in the game and you're just playing and you're playing as hard as you can play for the minutes that you're on the floor. When you come off, you get a breather, you go back out there, balls to the wall again. Look at how many times in that Memphis game guys were on the floor.
Right.
And guys were battling for the ball. Guys were aggressive. And that's the sign of a team that's starting to figure itself out, a team that's starting to come together. Roles are starting to be defined. If you look, there's a lot of good performances, not just Davenport and his 7 threes,
right?
But DeJulius, Adams, Woods, Newman. I thought Ado did a good job defensively inside. Odie had a couple really good segments. It was just a case where even though they weren't able to get the win, there's more positives than negatives to take away from this game.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about those roles, because it seems as if this team is starting to define those. You see Micah Adams Woods has found a shot again. He's kind of settled into that. And sure, the close of the game was not what you would have wanted or hoped for, but still there was a couple of situations that were probably a little bit too tough for him to handle. But outside of that, David Julius is turning into that playmaker, kind of go-to player when they need a shot to be made. And you mentioned Odie off the bench, just bringing those hustle minutes. Vic doesn't seem to be pressing too hard anymore. Even the Hayden Koval has kind of really pulled back and picked his spots. You heard it with it, Joe.
I told you, man. I'm fighting it. I'm trying to get the energy back up.
I hear you. But yawns are contagious, so be careful. But no, so it's just. It just seems as if that's kind of what a lot of coaches, you hear them say, we're still just trying to figure out our roles, especially, the last tenure. You kind of heard that all the way through the entire season. We're still trying to define the roles out on the court, this, that, and the other. But it seems as if the last couple of games you really saw who's going to be the ones distributing, who's going to be the ones looking for their shots, who's going to be the ones that are battling hard for the rebounds. I think you could come away with Abdul Ado and just say, hey, he has been playing lights out, and I don't think he's scored in the past 2 games. Maybe 2 points, maybe 1 point or something along those lines. And I think he's arguably one of the more valuable players on this team. I thought he had a spectacular game against Memphis, and you could be a stat sheet, warrior and say that didn't really look like Abdul Ado had too good of a game. But I think he was phenomenal, and I think, would you say the role recognition and just the buy-in from everyone has to be one of the leading factors to this slight turnaround and heavy lean towards what's looking to be a contender to make the tournament if they're able to win the AAC tournament. It seems as if that is exactly what.
Well, if they won the AAC tournament, if they won the AAC tournament, they would automatically.
That's what I meant. They're starting.
You said they'd be a contender.
Contender to win. I don't think you're going to throw, ECU's name in that hat or something along those lines. But yeah, it just seems like the role recognition is starting to be a main development to what this team is starting to mold together and become a big time unit.
Yeah. to that point, Deanna, it was a loss, but it almost didn't feel like one. I would say the one part that was a tough pill to swallow for a team that has struggled from three so mightily this season.
Oh man,
to have a game where you hit 16, you
Yep.
get 16 to 30 and you lose.
Most ever. Last night you said most ever at FedEx against Memphis.
By a college team.
Right.
But most ever by a college team, including Memphis. Memphis has never hit 16 threes in a game in that building.
Yep.
So that's the one part where it's like that's a tough pill to swallow when you shoot like that.
Yeah.
And you don't get out of there with a dub. But there, that's not the end of the world. It's just boy, that's unfortunate.
Well, and you hate to use the word moral victory, but that's almost what this was. I mean, I think it's a kind of a boost for the boys to know that they can, like we said last night, if this game had been in Cincinnati, they win this game.
Well, I think what I take away from it is that was a Memphis team that has not played great through most of this season, right? They have had some games where, when they beat Alabama, like there have been a couple times where they've flashed.
Mm-hmm.
I think what you can take away is that was pretty much Memphis' best shot. Like they threw a haymaker at Cincinnati and Cincinnati wouldn't go away. That 6-point run late in the second half where, they get 2 or 3 dunks, a couple steals.
Yeah.
That team last year wilts at that point, right?
Right.
And instead, this team said, "Nah, we're coming back for some more," and they took the lead.
Yeah.
At 81-80, right? Or 80-79. With 51 seconds to play, like they took Memphis' best punch and didn't fold. And I think if you're looking for the bright spot, that's the bright spot. As it was a really talented Memphis team playing at a high level, and Cincinnati went right toe-to-toe with them.
And more on the threes made is, the fact that, yes, Jeremiah Davenport went bonkers, and it's going to be hard for him to duplicate that sort of performance.
Sure.
In another game. But still, you had John Newman finding his shot, 3 for 5. You had Mike Adams-Woods continuing his hot streak. David DeJulius, his step back starting to just look as money as possible. And his 1-3 down the stretch that probably would have maybe won the game for Cincinnati that went halfway down and rimmed out.
That sucked.
It did. But, it just seems as if let's hope it's not a one-game anomaly type thing where, John Newman all of a sudden goes ice cold from deep. And,
right.
Micah falls off the cliff again or continues this hot streak that he's on. Just got to hope that it carries on to the next game because, like you said, if you hit 16 threes in a game, you got to hope, by God, that you're coming out with a victory. Because that does not happen very often. And then you look at the rebounding and the different things of that sort, and the free throws and free throws made and attempted. It's going to be crazy. So it's definitely a game to take some moral victories from, but one where when you really take a step back and you say, man, we really could have stolen one on the road, that would have been a pretty big feather in the cap to go with some of the other big wins that they've had throughout the season so far this year. So, yes.
It would have been a Q1 win. So, yeah, of course it would have been big.
Yeah, you put that up there with the Illinois win. And, I mean, with the way that this conference is shaken out, you avoid any more bad losses and get maybe get Memphis or Houston at home later on in the year. Who knows? I mean, who knows how the rest of college basketball landscape's looking at the end of the season? But
this next 5-game stretch is critical.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I mean, it's critical because you can either win every game in the next 5 games, or you could stumble on the road at Wichita State. Temple's had a couple of decent games. Tulsa's solid. I mean, and then ECU twice. You hate going to Greenville. No one likes playing in Greenville, whether it be football or basketball. So it's a moment where you can not let this loss kind of propel you like that first half against Tulane did. Just keep playing this high level of basketball. Then all of a sudden you get the back-to-back again of Houston and Memphis, or Memphis then Houston, sorry, and both of them at home. So, I mean, yeah, there's a big opportunity ahead of this team. And, what if you come out of that pretty much unscathed? I mean, you're looking at a team that's kind of rolling at the exact right time.
Yeah, I mean, the reason, like, if you're going to build some momentum, February is a pretty tough slate.
Yeah,
for Cincinnati.
Right.
So if you can build some momentum right here, you can put yourself in a position to go into February with some confidence. The thing for me, they have now, dating back to the second half of the Tulane game, put together 100 minutes of connected, high effort, high intensity basketball.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can continue with that and stay on that path, I think you can be in good shape when we get to the end of this 5-game stretch.
Yeah, and I think that's, I mean, we've hit on it in the last couple of nights, both before the game and what we wanted to see, and then afterwards. And it was just a matter of, is this team capable of doing it? And now that we've seen not one but 2 games straight, like, not to mention the Illinois game, which I think I was beginning to think was a complete fluke and was beginning to lose faith in this team. I'm sure Brent, as the eternal optimist, never lost that faith. Mm-hmm. And, here we are believing in this team now that they can hang with more or less anybody but maybe Houston in the conference.
We'll see, man.
Even Houston doesn't have Marcus Sasser or Draymond Mark anymore.
That's true.
That's 2 monster offensive pieces they have.
They have not looked nearly as complete without those, as you would expect.
Right.
It's 2 of their 3 or 4 best players. But they just don't have the same pop on the perimeter right now that they've had. Kelvin Sampson will get those bench guys coached up. And by the end of the year, they're going to, they'll probably be, again, far and away the top team in the conference. But they're not there yet. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Cincinnati team navigates these next 5, man, because they are big.
And interesting as well. I don't know, Chad, if you've heard anything or kind of know how it works about the rescheduling of that one Houston game at Houston. I'm sure it's
with
probably
the American. Who knows, man?
Yeah. It's probably something that just let the committee see it as a W or something, and we'll go on from there. We'll just keep on rocking. But yeah, it's a time to really be happy, take a step back and look at the team and say, hey, everyone's starting to just find their roles and find their grooves. I mean, even Mason Madsen's giving minutes that
because I'm happy.
Right, happy. Well, speaking of happy, the kickoff of the national championship just happened. The last 2 teams that the Bearcats lost to in football are about to take place. That doesn't make me too happy. But
Aaron does not. He has no interest in the game. Doesn't care.
Don't.
Sure.
I'll have it on. I'll have it on.
One of the things, Brent, that I wanted to bring.
Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to bring up from the game last night that I brought up with Chad last night when we were doing our nightcap is what I guess, like, in my eyes, I feel like last year's team, if they would have had a guy like Jeremiah Davenport followed up by a guy like Victor Locken, get 2 fouls right there in the first, 3-5 minutes, and to where they're both on the bench, and these are 2 obviously very important pieces to your team.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think this team would have folded then, much less all the other haymakers that Memphis threw with the alley-oops and
I mean, what I would say there is that's where they got that good stretch from Odie.
They did.
And that was critical because that kind of stemmed the tide. And then they brought Davenport back in and he hit his first 2 threes.
Yeah.
But
also last year though, they would have put Rob Banks in before Tari Eason. So, it would have been a tough water to tread as well. I agree. But it's
turn
just
me up. Hello. Turn me up in my headphones. Hello.
Yeah. That must have been whatever's going through me right now that came out there. But
the fever talking.
No, I agree. It was I mean, but another thing from last season, and kind of I've been talking about this with some of my friends as well, is the fact that last year, how many times did the team just seem completely outmatched in the post? And whenever the opposing team, and sure, the rebounding hasn't been what you want it to be. It's the biggest negatory thing of this squad. The biggest blemish is their defensive rebounding. They're just not good at it. And this will be just something where you see, oh geez.
Wow.
But this will be something where like you don't see the squad really struggle to contain in the post or defend, or they don't back down from anybody down low, which is something that you saw in previous seasons where they kind of struggled with. There were games where they seemed outmatched, and beyond that, it's just what exactly is it going to take for this team to really wilt and fall down to a team and give up like certain times happened in past seasons. It just seems like right now when they're moving and playing in this right direction, players they're veterans, they're angry, they're ready, and they're trying their best to pull out victories in this and a lot of these players their final season of college basketball. So it's gonna be big time. Good. Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, Chad, you are on mute here.
I said that was for you, Brent. Did you see that?
What did he say? Is it frustrating to you guys that they can't dump it down low for these buckets? Odie seems that he's got that first half where he went 4 for 4, all easy little lay-ins. It kind of looks like he's starting to get his little post touch.
He's been the most comfortable at the rim for sure.
Yeah, it seems like they're trying to get Abdullah Doe up to speed to make him be that kind of post touch guy as well. But yeah, I mean, yes, that's something that you obviously want to have. And I mean, it's tough when you don't have it, but still, it's the fact that this team defensively, I love the defense that the post brings as well, which is, sometimes if you can't bring it on offense, you sure as heck better bring it on defense, and that's what this team does.
Was Victor Larkin's pass that Odie missed one of the top 5 prettiest passes that Cincinnati has seen this season?
He let him just a little too much. Like it was just a bit outside. Tried the corner and missed. Ball 4, ball 8. Vaughn has walked the bases loaded.
Well, Andy put the spin on it too.
Yes,
he
had the English on it. That was a nasty pass.
And of course the announcer was like, "You can't make that pass. Well, you can't do that."
He said sometimes you got the right guy going to the wrong guy, and basically just saying that pass was too good for Odie to corral in.
No, what he said after that was he needed to take 2 dribbles baseline and make the smart entry pass.
Yeah, from the
angle.
No,
they love Memphis.
Vic was just trying to show us how much he's like, a budding Nikola Jokic. He's just trying to show us that side of his game.
Here we go again.
But no, so we've touched on Memphis ad nauseum, and to be honest with you, that was a game. Some games you could say Cincinnati lost this game, and yes, there were some games where some plays down the stretch where you can kind of maybe point to that final offensive possession was kind of tough to stomach. Chad, you might have asked in the presser about Wes thinking about using a timeout there, down 3, and I believe you said that he tried to, but it was too loud in the building or something along those sorts. Would you have wanted to see a timeout called and kind of gather everyone in, come up with a set play, or are you letting the guys go in that situation down 3?
I think he did. They got the play that they wanted called, and according to Wes, they just didn't properly execute the action. So that's when he was trying to get the timeout, when he saw that the backside of the play had kind of fallen apart. Mm-hmm. And it was basically just that flat, high ball screen that they had been running and getting to the rim at will throughout the second half. And I think they ran, based on what Wes said, they ran kind of a variation of it that they had already run twice for scores. And for whatever reason, just somebody on the backside wasn't in the right spot, and it kind of blew up the play. So that's when he was trying to get a timeout. But, I mean, if you can get your play in without needing a timeout and you've got set what you want to get set, I don't think you need a timeout there. But as soon as it falls apart,
Yeah,
you got to get one quick. And then for whatever he said they didn't hear him. He wasn't able to get one.
Seemed a little panicky by the team at some point, but still, it's the fact that you put yourself in that position at the end of the game is just great. And then also you got to look at the other side. Memphis won that game as well. Lester Canones made, however much you hate him in his short shorts, he made numerous winning plays. And then, of course, Tyler Harris. He leaves, and then he said, I'm going to come back to take out Cincinnati's heart. So he comes back, and he has, a somewhat of a career game, 20 points. And, I mean, some of those threes were so far away. I'm not even sure you could see the rim from that distance. But, they fell through. And those are some prayer shots that sometimes someone's on, and when he makes those plays down the stretch, you got to tip your cap. But it was a great game. Great game and a chance for them to pull out a road victory. They didn't. But one where they can use it as momentum going down for the rest of these games heading into that tough stretch against, of course, Memphis and then Houston again. Chad, you're gone. You're muted again.
That's because there's stuff happening here. We have breaking news. Breaking news live on this podcast. Nick Mardner, 6'6" wide receiver transfer from Hawaii.
Yes.
Has committed to the Cincinnati Bearcats.
Yes.
One of the best transfers available in the country. Cincinnati was looking for some help outside to replace Alec Pierce. Nick Mardner has been the primary target at that position for quite some time. And now he is committed to be a Bearcat.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Big time. Guys, talk about that for a little bit because, of course, it was something that a lot of teams started coming in as the recruitment continued on. You saw a couple more offers getting thrown his way. Some of those might have been offers that had a little bit of a connection to Cincinnati, and, it is what it is. But, hey, Bearcat, lock, loaded, 6'6", had great stats last season at Hawaii. I mean, this is a big time get for the Bearcats, especially with all the news that they've had with all of those players deciding to come back. Let's talk about this, wrap this up, and then we're going to come back to it in the football segment once we wrap up basketball. But guys, this is as big of a signing or a commitment, if you will, as you could want in an offseason. A talented, ready wide receiver who can step in and be that big outside option.
I think where it's important is we know this defense is going to take a bit of a step back. Not that they won't be very good, but you're replacing NFL legit talent at most every level. Now, with the news we've got on guys coming back, they're not devoid of talent at those levels, but you're losing a lot of guys. So this is going to be a team offensively that's going to have to find ways to put points on the board. And there's going to be a lot more games, I think, next year where we're going to see the offense have to keep pace, right? Because this year, basically, if the offense got 4 scores and 7 years ago, it was a wrap. See what I did there, Brent? You like that?
I like it.
But if the offense put up 24, 27, 28 points, the game was essentially over because the opponent wasn't going to be able to score enough to get a win. There's going to be games next year where teams are going to be able to put up some points, I think. So Cincinnati needed to get as many weapons as possible. Nick Mardner does that. There you see his stats from Hawaii this year. His junior season was his breakout season. And I know Gino Guidugli, Mike Brown, the offensive staff really liked him from the get-go. And there you see 46 catches, 913 yards, 19.8 yards per catch for his career, 20.5 yards per catch, 8 touchdowns. I think if you're Cincinnati, you got to be thrilled that you were able to go get this guy who looks like he's on the way up.
Listed as 6'6".
Yeah, big kid. If you watch some of his highlights, he's a big kid, big catch radius.
He's up.
Can go get those fades in the corner of the end zone that this offense is liked. So this is a key addition. As we record the podcast, love it.
This is now the second kid from Hawaii who has left Hawaii to come to Cincinnati, as you also had Sage Tolentino, who left Hawaii for the sweet grounds of Hamilton.
A little different because Nick Mardner is from Canada.
Well,
so he's familiar with cold.
All right, then Cincinnati is not so unfamiliar. It might actually be warm by comparison to Canada.
I mean, the kid did it right out of high school, right? Though he's from Canada, he's like, I'm going to Hawaii.
That's great.
Wow, that is some big news, guys. Soak it in, and that's off the heels of Lenny Taylor saying he's going to come back for another season. So,
we got a lot to talk about when we get to football.
We do.
Listed at 190 pounds too. So,
Brady.
I'm sure Brady can't wait to get his hands on him and see what kind of muscle weight he can put on a kid from Hawaii.
And
next week kind of feels like a Brady week, doesn't it? Do we need this? Do we need to hit up Uncle Brady?
Long overdue.
Winter workouts probably firing up soon.
Got the kids on campus.
Usually they got back today. Was the first day of classes. Usually they'll give them a week before they really start getting after it. So next Monday would probably be like the first full day of winter workouts.
Yep. Saw Luke Dalton said he's all moved in. So
the 9 guys, the 9 early enrollees are all here.
That's football. Let's wrap up basketball. Thank you very much for that awesome splash in of the breaking news. We're going to come back to that because it's good enough breaking news where we need to make another ring around the rosy and start to talk about the Hawaii wide receiver and his impact on the offense next season. Anyway, basketball. We it's been a whole 3 weeks? Oh, come on, Brian. It's been about 4 weeks.
He used to do every other show.
I'm with him. Like I said, I think we're well overdue.
But so we already touched on the Memphis game quite a lot. Tyler Harris just graduate, and then let's talk about SMU. SMU has to just hate Cincinnati. The football team has had a couple of promising seasons. They've looked solid, and then Cincinnati goes in and rips their heart out. Cincinnati wins on a walk-off pick 6 with James Wiggins. Cincinnati then completely undresses them at home this season, leads to their coach just, saying, hey, guys, I'm sorry, but I'm leaving you guys. I'm going, across the way to TCU because I just can't stand being here at SMU. Then in basketball, they've lost, 10 in a row now? It just – man, SMU has to just look at Cincinnati and just say, I hate you, Cincinnati. I hate you. Another big victory, and one where you could argue that was probably the best Cincinnati's looked all season, right up there with the Illinois performance because, man, they were hitting tough shots. They were making great plays on defense. They were doing pretty much everything it took to pull out a big victory, and they were able to build a monster lead. And then it did dwindle a little bit in the second half, but they were able to push it back out and pull out a big victory. Man, that was an awesome game. Aaron, were you able to make it there for the game?
No, it was the
9:30 tip.
Well, the 9:30 tip sucked. The weather conditions weren't great to travel from Athens to Cincinnati down that long road of 32. And we just stayed put here. So I did watch it, but I hung around.
Heck of a win.
Stop.
That's fine.
That's
fine.
Of a win. Chad, obviously we've rehashed. We touched on SMU quite a lot, but would you say that this SMU is probably the one team in the conference that just like probably just can't stand the Bearcats by this point?
I would say they're certainly right up there. I mean, in basketball, they just can't put together a game plan to beat Cincinnati. And I don't know if it's a toughness thing, if they've just run into Cincinnati at the wrong time where they're Cincinnati's. But I mean, SMU had won 8 in a row. They were playing really, really well.
Yeah.
And Cincinnati just that was kind of, for me, that's where I saw a light go on defensively. In terms of, Kendrick Davis is such a pain in the ass in the pick and roll because he's so quick and he can get downhill on you and he can get his quickness side to side on you. And Cincinnati just stonewalled him for most of that game. I mean, he had 16, but he shot 30% from the floor, 35% from the floor, and just never really looked or felt comfortable running that SMU offense. And that was when I was like, okay, if they're going to start looking like this and playing disconnected on the defensive end, while also starting to hit shots and seeing the offense be a little bit more consistent, then you're really going to have something to work with as we get into, mid-January into February.
Kendrick Davis scored a career high in points last season in the AAC championship. It's not championship game, the AAC tournament against Cincinnati. They still lost that game. It's hilarious. I mean, you go back and look at some of these games that Cincinnati was able to beat SMU. SMU had some good teams, some teams that were on rolls when they played the Bearcats. But yet here we are, the Stone Cold Killers, the tamers of the Stangs, the Desmond Ritter going 3 yards,
91
91 yards for a touchdown with his legs all over SMU, man. Jeez, those ponies, man. They are hurting for the Bearcats. But yeah, I mean, this is a game where you just saw and kind of you heard a lot of talk from Wes after the game as well about how, just kind of what we already mentioned. Everyone's figuring out their rules at the right time. It's whether it's, Mikey Saunders had his career high in assists. You had David DeJulius pouring it in, but also Micah Adams-Woods having a career high in points as well. Also 5 of 8 from deep. So, I mean, these are all just things that you hope translate for the rest of the season, and they aren't just flashes in the pan, which I think is the perfect thing to have an ECU game at home. Because if that game on Wednesday was on the road at ECU, who knows what could happen. But the fact that it's at home and then you have that game at Wichita coming up on Sunday, I think that's a good recipe to kind of just keep this high intensity and high motives rolling as the season wears on. So, I mean, the past 2 game stretch has been some of the best basketball this team has played, especially since Kansas City. But man, this SMU game was awesome to watch and a good reason to just stay up absolute late and love basketball every second of it.
I think my head hit the pillow at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
I got home at 1. Like, what are we doing where we're having a basketball game where you get home at 1 o'clock? It's a 2-hour sport. What are we doing?
You know, the funniest thing is so I had travel issues last week, and I didn't get home back to Indy until Thursday morning at around 1 a.m. So anyway, I had a lot of office work I had to fix up. So I was there in the office until the wee hours of the morning and watched it there. But they switched it to put it on ESPN, you know what I mean, at 9:30. Yeah. The hockey game that was on before them on ESPN ran 30 minutes over. So you had to watch it on ESPNU for the first 30 minutes of the game. I mean, it was just a lot of logistics that didn't really quite work out there.
ESPN. Should have moved hockey to ESPN News. Who's even watching regular season hockey?
Oh, I guess enough people.
They paid a lot of money for that deal.
Right. But no, basketball, you got to be heads up, loving the way it's trending. And also another thing that's cool to note, I guess, is the fact that you have an East Carolina team that's not really a typical East Carolina team with a big losing record and kind of down and out. I mean,
they're not as bad as they have been.
No, yeah, it's a 10-4 team, and I mean, honestly, they're pretty solid. That all their losses, their biggest loss was a 10-point loss to Liberty. They lost to Oklahoma, Davidson, and Temple are the other losses. I mean, no good wins. Maybe I guess you could consider Tulane a good win because the Bearcats lost to them, but
Tulane beat Memphis.
Yeah, Tulane also beat Memphis. So, it's a game that you can't just look at them and look at their record and be like, oh, this is a pushover. No, this is a 10-4 ECU team. The Bearcats will come out ready to fire on all cylinders yet again. So it's going to be a fun atmosphere. Hopefully at Fifth Third Arena. I will not be there, but it's going to be a chance for them to continue this path of high level basketball that they've recently been playing.
You're not going to test out a health and safety protocols by Wednesday.
I don't know. The karma data karma. The they said no.
Okay.
I already got the thumbs down on that one. But no, we'll be all right.
Are you working from home this week?
Yeah, working from home. So, but man, it's work, 30 minutes to an hour and go lay down for 10 minutes type ordeal, man. It's a weird thing. This thing is weird, but we'll all survive. So basketball trending in the right direction. A lot of excitement behind them. Anything else on that front, guys, before we move on to the next seg?
No, it's time to hit some football and get to the mailbag and call it a night. Let you get some resty rest.
Yes, amen. So sorry. So I think one final thing for me is, man, I love Wes Miller press conferences, man. That guy you can just tell that he's got unbelievable control of the program. And the fact that
I love the information you get out of them. Like, you learn the actual, like, what's going on inside the game.
Yep.
Like, I make it a point to ask him basketball questions because most of the time coaches just won't answer. Like, if you ask them specific strategy questions, they'll dance around it.
Right.
If you ask Wes will tell you, like, this is what we were trying to do. This is what went wrong. This is what went right. Like, I love having a guy that will talk basketball.
Right.
And will try to educate the fan base on, this is what we were trying to accomplish. This is why it was successful, or this is why it didn't work out. But, like, I love that. I love it.
He's a man. He is a man. So let's move on to football. Obviously, there's a big game going on right now in football. It is the.
They already had this game. It's not that big.
Well, you know what, the funny thing is this. Obviously, if Cincinnati was in this game,
we wouldn't be recording tonight.
No, we would not. And health and safety protocol, we'd have to figure it out. But and then aside from that,
you'd be watching from your couch, bro.
Oh, could you imagine?
No, I think the dear Lord above would have a little bit more help in making sure that I somehow was able to drive 15, 20 minutes away and make it to the game.
Could you imagine if you weren't allowed to be at this game because of health and safety protocol when it was 15 minutes from your house and the Bearcats were playing for a championship? Oh, man, my God.
My friend group was blowing up about that today. They were like, yeah, we would have to like pull some crazy strings, maybe like write a letter to somebody and rent out a whole entire suite and just have just me in there.
Brent shows up in a biohazard suit.
Right.
If that's what it would take, I mean, I'd do it. I would literally do it. But no, it's still. I was frustrated I wasn't able to take in the festivities because, I mean, if you were here in Indy when the Super Bowl was here, it's just they put on a great show. I've heard it's great down there. Cincinnati didn't make it, so I'm not too bummed that I missed out on all the festivities leading up to it. But my favorite thing about the national championships in either sport is that right when that final, right when the buzzer hits 0 and a national champion is crowned, you immediately get the talk of next season. And that's what I love. I love when all the pundits put out the way too early top 25s or the, teams to watch out for, players to watch, this, that, and the other. And last season, Cincinnati was littered in all of those preseason top 25s, preseason top 10s, players to look out for, different things of that sort. This year, I expect them to still be in those top 25s. but they're going to do some digging to figure out, players to watch here and there. This past week, a lot of news has been dumped as far as who the football team has had. You've got Ben Bryant coming back. You've got, wide receivers from Hawaii announcing live on BBP. You've got BCJ getting news from Jabari Taylor that he's coming back. There's so many moving parts. Malik Van, Javon Hicks, Lenny Taylor. Is this kind of a snowball effect, Chad and Aaron? Are we thinking there's going to be some more news that drops? Because right now it seems as if it's somewhat of a similar effect to last season. Obviously, not the PTP players like a Desmond Ritter and Majay Sanders and Kobe Bryant saying that they're going to be.
I thought you meant part of the punctuation.
Well, no, that was a play on words a little bit, but I was using PTP as primetime players. But no, it's this does seem like a snowball effect where it's kind of dumping, and then all of a sudden you see, wow, yes, they lost a lot, but there's some really big name players coming back, and then also these players that are filling in from behind them as well.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you have a quarterback at the caliber of Desmond Ritter leaving, there's going to be some fluctuation. Guys that may or may not have stayed, depending on that situation. But there were a lot of super seniors this year, right? So you were going to have some guys moving on. It seemed the right time for a lot of these guys too, like Alec Pierce. Yeah. And for some of these guys like a Malik Van who didn't have the opportunity because of the injuries or because of whatever the case may be. So, I mean, I don't think there's been a ton of surprises as of yet outside of Ben Bryant coming back. That's been obviously the biggest surprise of the offseason outside of maybe Denbrock leaving. But that's just kind of where we are right now.
I think getting Lenny back in the fold as well, Jabari and Javon, Malik as well. You're starting to see some building blocks similar to last season. But like I said, not the biggest names, biggest splash names out there. But would you kind of okay? Let's start from the quarterback position. The Ben Bryant news comes, and all of a sudden the fan base kind of goes into a bit of a frenzy about the whole Evan Prater, Ben Bryant talk back and forth. But, we've mentioned it on this podcast quite a lot and all throughout BCJ is that, you need a veteran quarterback who, if something were to happen to Evan Prater, say that if this quarterback room was going to just continue on without adding anyone really of significance or veteran leadership to the squad. If Evan Prater, God forbid, were to go down with some sort of an injury throughout the season, I mean, you're turning to a true freshman and a redshirt freshman, and then a handful of walk-ons to go out there and try and lead this team that still has all these pieces that are still vying to win another championship. It made sense.
Even with Prater, I mean, he had what, Chad, like 40 snaps total, and so that's all we have in the quarterback room right now is 40 total snaps. That's not how you want to go into any season.
At least now you've got Ben Bryant that started a full year at Eastern Michigan. He started a game at Cincinnati. He had a more than just like mop-up experience in his time here. The competition from – because Ben's here. It started classes today. He's go time for Ben Bryant. Like, we're going to get the full Evan Prater versus Ben Bryant head-to-head battle starting in spring football.
Can't wait.
Remember last week when I said I was really excited for spring football? Mm-hmm. Remember last week when everybody was like, what's the biggest pickup of the offseason? And I said, ask me next week.
Yeah.
It's next week. Like, once I heard after Ben entered the portal and I heard that Cincinnati was going to make a push and that things were looking good, it was like, this is going to get interesting because I think Ben feels like he's got unfinished business here. I think Ben, and this is no, like, I think Ben feels like he could have led this team to the college football playoff this year. And that's how confident Ben is. I think that's how good of a quarterback Ben is. When his first career start was season regular season championship on the line at Memphis. Was he perfect? No. You go back and look, man, he played a pretty damn good game in Memphis that day.
He did.
He made a couple mistakes that I think were indicative of your first career start. But now he's got, 12 games, 13 games under his belt, 10 of them as a starter, 10 of them as a starter, plus the one in Cincinnati. Quarterback's going to be so fascinating as we get to spring ball. Like, every day you're going to have to watch the quarterback reps as much as possible because it's going to be really fun to follow who's getting the leg up as we go into the summer. And then when we get to fall, the higher ground, who's got the lead when we get to higher ground. We're going to be monitoring who's taking more first team rep, all those things that you have when you have two guys really competing for that number one spot. It's going to be fun. And Nick Mardner, Lenny Taylor, Tyler Scott, Trey Tucker, Ethan Wright, Ryan Montgomery. I think Miles Montgomery has a chance to really be a factor this year. There were some runs from Miles Montgomery in practice this year that you're like, looks a little bit like Rome. Is that 24? Like, that kid has some pop to him. I'm going to be, you talk about being excited to do your job. Getting to spring football practice every day this spring is going to be an exciting part of my job because there's so many storylines, so much fun that's going to play out on that field in March and April.
All those storylines you just dropped, that's all without even mentioning the defense.
Yeah, haven't even talked about that.
That lost more guys than the offense.
Right.
Another thing to remember as far as the quarterback's situation goes, the competition is something that Luke and Brady and the whole staff mentions all the time. The iron sharpens iron. And a lot of people aid that to the reason why Desmond Ridder was able to be so successful was the fact that he was pushed every day in practice and pushed every offseason by the abilities of Ben Bryant, by the potential that, no, Des doesn't have the starting role. It's going to be quarterback competition again this offseason. And so I think that's just another piece where it says, hey, Evan Prater is a blue chip, big time prospect. He is going to be in a quarterback competition with Ben Bryant. Ben, you come back here, you're in a competition with Evan Prater, the highest rated recruit in program history. And of course, you're going to tell that to Evan as well. Evan's going to amp up his game and his production. So I mean, it's a win-win in all phases. And then another thing to also remember is the fact that Gino Guidugli, who obviously there hasn't been any movements as far as the coaching situation goes, but Ben Bryant was Gino's guy, and
yeah, for sure.
It's something to think about.
So is Evan Prater.
Yes, right. Yes. But Ben is a guy. Ben Bryant's a guy that you heard can make every throw on the field. This, that, and the other. So it's going to be awesome to see the production between the two of them. And then you mentioned all those different pieces, all the specialty pieces, and Luke always harps on this is a program built in the trenches. On the offensive side, that offensive line, it's set, it's built.
You just got Malik Van and Jabari Taylor back.
And then on the defensive side, you've got two just uber
starter
veterans.
Level, starter defensive lineman along with Jawan Briggs, another starter level
Briggs
defensive
out there.
lineman.
Yep.
And then a host of Justin Wattley and Eric Phillips and is Rob Jackson ready? Is Jamal Williams ready? Who I've heard
Corleone.
Dante Corleone, is he ready to step in and plug some minutes at nose tackle? I mean, there's a lot of opportunity. Dominique Perry's a guy that we've been impressed with that has struggled to fight his way up the depth chart because so many of the veteran guys have stuck around.
Mm-hmm. Briggs.
Yeah, well, I mentioned Briggs already. You got to listen. You got to pay attention.
I got a lot of moving pieces over here.
So there's a lot to it that, man, all of a sudden now you're looking, hopefully in the next 24, 48 hours, you get a decision from Wilson Huber. You get a decision from Josh Wiley. Imagine if those two come back. And now your list of returnees that you weren't sure about is hypothetically those two come back. Let's say Huber, Wiley, Lenny Taylor, Jabari Taylor, Malik Van, Javon Hicks. And all of a sudden that young team that everybody was worried about, they're like, are we going to have to dip into the freshmen and the redshirt freshmen? All of a sudden, there's starting to be a little bit more experience and depth stacked on top of that. And then you've got a couple transfer spots that would still be available. And now you go into the spring and maybe somebody at, one of these elite level schools says, I don't like where I'm at on the depth chart. And maybe I like where I'm at on Cincinnati's depth chart. And after spring ball, you add a couple more. Remember last year? We talked about this last week. Remember last year in the summer when everybody was like, hey, what about this guy that's in the portal? Hey, what about that guy's in the portal? And I had to tell them over and over and over again, Cincinnati doesn't have a spot. Mm-hmm. There's a pretty good chance we get to this summer and Cincinnati has a spot.
Got a couple spots. Yeah.
And that, you got a couple extra spots to play with in the spring and summer. I think, maybe you break it down to it is that like maybe they were having the same feelings. Yeah. Inside that coaching staff of, man, there were a couple guys last summer that maybe could have come in here and helped us out, but we couldn't make a play. Dino Boyd was a late addition. James Tunstall was kind of a late addition into summer last year. So I'm just saying, like, as this thing evolves, because there's so much, and what's to say they don't go through spring and say, you know what, we really, really need one of these. Yeah. Or we really, really need one of those. And now you've got a little bit of freedom to go out and make something like that happen as you go through the summer. I couldn't be more excited for this offseason. It feels like an NFL offseason, right? Yeah. Where what the core probably is going to be. Mm-hmm. You don't know exactly what the alignment of everything is going to be, but you also know, you know what? We got a little cap space. A little cap space to go play the free agent market. We're $30 million under the cap. Let's go get some dudes.
Well, then you also mentioned the fact that last season you look at Cincinnati's roster. If you are a player in the transfer portal,
why the hell are you coming here?
And you're like, wait a minute, they literally returned everyone. There's no chance I'm hopping these people unless I'm going to be a potential first team All-American or all-league player. So yeah, I mean, there's opportunities to really help and build everywhere. And you mentioned all these returning players, with super seniors and the potential, pushing off the NFL for another season. And then you look at a completely returning offensive line. And that right there is irreplaceable. That's something that you can't, that a lot of teams in the country can't really point to as a big thing that they have going their way. So yeah, I mean, a lot of excitement, and there's going to be a lot of reasons to really keep an eye and see exactly what's going to shake and what's going to move next. I mean, you saw a wide receiver today who picked up an offer from LSU and had an offer from Texas A&M. He's coming to Cincinnati, and he's going to be 6'6", molded by Brady Collins, guest on the BBP next week. Fingers crossed.
Maybe. We got to clear that with Brady first.
I said fingers crossed. And yeah, I mean, yeah, it's going to be every bit of as fun of an offseason as it can be. And even if you do add these players, that's just more added momentum for the returning players, for the underclassmen to amp up their game and amp up their preparation and their hard work throughout the offseason to win those battles in the position rooms. So, man, there's a lot of promise heading into what's going to be another great season, I believe, especially with all these players now returning.
That black and red game is going to be a lot of fun this year.
Yeah. Oof. Yeah, it'll be a little Prater versus Ben Bryant.
A little who's who.
Yeah. Get your roster cards out. But coaching searches. Are we still even keel on that front as far as, the connections at special teams coordinator and of course at offensive coordinator? Or are we kind of just even keel, keep a steady pat on that, or?
I don't think there's a lot of progress there yet. The staff has been kind of in and out of town.
Well, Luke's been Hollywood tonight.
Yeah, I mean, Luke has had a lot on his plate. I think those things are being worked on behind the scenes, but I don't think we've had a lot of movement yet.
Yeah,
I'm monitoring. Been talking to as many people as possible, trying to get a feel. Like we say every year, man, the assistant thing is the hardest thing to track because the assistants don't want it out.
Yeah.
Because what happens if it gets out that they're a name of interest and they're, sniffing around for different jobs and they don't become the guy that gets the job?
Well, then
all of a sudden your head coach
even harder.
Well, no, then your head coach that is your boss is
pissed.
What are we doing here? Like, are you my guy or are you not my guy?
Right. No. Well, yeah. No, I meant they'll be sniffed, so they got to start sniffing even more.
Right. So, I mean, like that they have a great deal of reason not to let that get out. And the schools don't want it out because they're trying to keep quiet on what direction they're going in. And like, they don't want it out. Maybe you've got a hot up and coming guy that you got a little edge on. All of a sudden it gets out. And then another school with a bigger pocketbook with an opening is like, oh, they're looking at him. Maybe we should be looking at him. Like it's a giant game of chess. And because of that, the last thing the school or the prospective hire wants is that information getting into the hands of a guy like me. Right? Like, neither side wants that stuff out. So
100% of the time, every time.
We've been very good over the years about sniffing this stuff out as it plays out because we've had patience. We haven't overplayed our hand. We've worked our sources. We had Mike Brown before it was Mike Brown. We had Darren Page as a name to watch before it was Darren Page. When everybody was sold on Mike Daniels or Armand Benz, or what we said, look, there's this guy coming in. He blew away his interview process. We're tracking. We're keeping an eye. It was Darren Page. So let us work our process. We'll keep you updated as much as we can. And I think after we get through this championship game, that stuff's going to take on a lot more importance as a priority to get taken care of here you got to think the crazy thing, man, spring football starts in 2 months.
Right.
You want to get that guy in here and started, as quick as you possibly can. So I've heard a couple names bumped around. It's not comfortable, anything that I can say yet. But just know we're on it. We're talking to as many people as we can from as many places as we can. And I think there could be some, I think Gino is going to be the offensive coordinator still. My stance hasn't changed on that. As I said initially, when Denbrock left, I'm sure they will do their due diligence, but I can't imagine after spending 5 years grooming Gino for the job, you don't give him the job. That just doesn't. That's not the way this works.
Right.
I think there could be, some additional responsibilities added to some guys already on staff. I do think there are other teams out there looking at guys on Cincinnati staff. Mm-hmm. We talked about the many reasons. Look, if you're Perry Eliano and you just coached 2 first-team All-Americans, guess what? Your agent is sending people to voicemail with as many calls are coming in on people interested in hiring the cornerbacks coach of a guy that just, had a Thorpe Award and first-team All-American first-round draft pick.
Right.
Consensus All-American. So that's a tough one. You're going to have to fight if you're going to keep Perry Eliano. You have to commit some resources that way. And depending on who calls, like maybe the resources aren't even good enough. Like, who knows?
You've got to fight for your right to Perry.
Very good, Aaron.
Well done, sir. So the next couple weeks on that front, the special teams, the tight end.
Yeah.
Mace also coached the dollar/sniper position.
Right.
However, any of that and all of that plays out is gonna be one of the things at the forefront of the football side of things here through at least January and potentially into the beginning of February.
Right. I agree. All right. Well, and anything recruiting wise before we hop on into this?
We got a bunch of questions in the mailbag that are recruiting related, so I'll just get to it all then. You know what?
Let's on this. It's also my beautiful girlfriend's birthday today, so it's time to let's hop in pretty quick. Let's head on over to the 513shirts.com BVP mailbag. Aaron, tell us a little bit about 513shirts.com though.
Hop on to www.513shirts.com. You get free shipping on all orders over $45. Enter code BCJ for 10% off. He's not doing anything crazy like points off like Danco transmission is, where you're getting based on points, you're getting off your $100 order or anything. But he is doing 10% off if you enter code BCJ. So
he's also doing because of the return of Malik Van, 15% off the Malik Van collection when you use the code Malik22 at 513shirts.com.
Ooh, didn't know about that one.
And then, of course, Danco Joe posted on Twitter his picture supporting 513 shirts with the Malik Van 42 shirt. Danco Joe buys 513 shirts. Danco Joe goes to Galactic Fried Chicken for chicken. Look, that guy's in the Bearcat Journal Hall of fucking Fame, Danco Joe. Like it, you cannot go wrong with Danco Joe. If it's BCJ, he's all about it.
Yes. Aaron, open up that mailbag. What we got, brother?
All right. So first question in the football side of the 513shirts.com mailbag. Comes from UC Merck. For the 2023 draft, who is your top 5 prospects on offense and then your top 5 for defense?
2023.
Can I get through spring ball, Merck?
Let's just do quick. I think we can ballpark. Offense, you'll throw. Let's say that Josh comes back in this scenario.
Josh, sure.
Josh and Lenny would be in the top 5. I'd put, man.
Let's say Ben Bryant wins the job and balls out. Has a 4,000-yard, 25, 30 touchdown season.
He's winning the Heisman then, maybe.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but
if that's the case, then maybe this new kid from Hawaii also had an excellent season.
Or Tyler Scott.
Yeah. Or Trey Tucker.
Or Jaden Thompson.
NFL's starting to love those shifty, quick, multi-use players. Trey Tucker, say he has 2 kickoff returns for a touchdown. And
what's interesting there is I wonder how much maybe Tyler Scott is even more attractive in that role because he's got a couple extra inches. Mm-hmm. He's just as fast, as shifty. Like Tyler Scott has, like, if he keeps going, has a chance to really sell the NFL on. Yeah, I played field wide receiver, but I can play field and I can be a dynamic slot guy
and a return man, and also he's one
he's an
great gunner.
Special teams.
He's a great gunner. Him and Trey Tucker were great gunners. And then Lorenz Metz throw out there.
Jake Renfro will be draft eligible.
Renfro as well.
Eligible, yeah. So I mean, there's a bunch on offense. Defensively, gonna still stick with my boy Malik.
I think you have to throw Briggs' name in there.
Malik.
Briggs.
Pace
will be third year.
Yeah, Pace.
I don't know that he'd necessarily be draft like he'd be a high level draft pick, but he would be draft eligible if he had a monster season for sure.
I mean, imagine if he made the same step or a similar step that he did from last year to this year.
Yeah.
To next year. Arquan could, yep. I mean, he's shown that
I think
ability.
Maybe I'll be wrong here. I think Arquan could really step in for Kobe as the field outside receiver.
Okay.
I think he could be really, really good. I don't know that he's a boundary guy. That's not a knock on Arquan. I think it's just we saw this year how much length really impacts that. And I think the thing with Sauce that we didn't ever talk about, and you could talk about this a lot with Kobe too, like even though Kobe broke his hand, he was out there in a cast getting 2 picks his sophomore year. Yeah. So, but I think Arquan could really, really step into that Kobe role as a lockdown field corner that would shore up at least one side of the field for that defense.
You also have to mention Jabari and Hicks.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean,
oh no,
how much of it, Hicks this season? How much of it was the fact that you obviously didn't have the do you say holding his knee?
Jamison Williams
Jamison Williams
messed up his knee.
Javon Hicks, he didn't have much conversation about him throughout the year because there were NFL caliber players at every defensive back position, so it was just kind of like, yes. And then there's Hicks. Let's pick on Hicks. Teams tried to pick on him and he didn't really give up too much. So, I think Hicks will be fine. Yeah. I'm just,
that's bad.
Hopefully just a hyperextension.
That's a non-contact. Ooh.
Yeah, that didn't look good.
All right, so not a better time to move on.
If you can live bet Georgia right now, live bet Georgia.
Well, no, Aaron, I've got one more, and then JQ Hardaway comes in and pulls off the Maurice Claret and actually is able to get drafted after a true freshman season where he wins the Thorpe Award.
Like I said, not a better time to move on. Which do you guys think happens first? UC plays for their first game in the Big 12, or we get a new apparel deal?
First game, Big 12. I think there's a good chance that happens. I think there's a better chance that happens in 2023 than the apparel deal. I think the apparel deal happens in 2024. Maybe I'll be wrong on that. Maybe something will pop off and you'll see it happen first sooner. But I think UC is pretty content right now riding out the back end of this Under Armour deal and slow playing. I think what they'd love is for the apparel stuff to kind of evolve and go back to where it was profitable.
Well, if Under Armour would actually sell the shit that the players wear, whether it be on the sidelines, off the field, like that's the stuff people want. I don't understand why they're not selling that stuff.
Because right now UC is not really like a factor for them monetarily. They don't care. They're not making new stuff for UC.
Like, okay, that jacket that like Dez and you see the players wear. That's like white off gray and like off red.
The hoodie Dez wore in his goodbye video.
Just name your price for that jacket. Name your price.
I just don't understand.
Yeah.
Should have been doing this all along. Anyway. In the way too early polls, I've seen us unranked and ranked as high as 14th for 2022. Where do you think we'll be ranked in the AP/coaches polls?
Preseason, right?
Preseason, yeah. Preseason.
I'd say 18.
If I had to guess, I'd say 20, 22, somewhere in there. Yeah. I mean, it's just here's the thing that's going to hurt Cincinnati on that front. The draft is going to happen. Mm-hmm. And in people's mind, they're going to be like, that's half of their fucking team.
Right. Right. Well, and
half
also
of their team is in the NFL.
And also you'll look and you'll see, no starting quarterback. And yes, there are names that we know, but the casual fan and probably 3/4 of the AP voters will be like, "Oh, who is Evan Prater and Ben Bryant?" So,
and that's where I say I don't even think we're ranked. I think we will start unranked.
I wouldn't argue that, honestly. I don't think that would be far-fetched. I wouldn't be upset if Cincinnati's unranked.
Well, I mean,
going into
you came in at 22, so that's not much higher than 26.
Yeah,
which would be awesome, because that would just Luke and the staff would just pump that until there's no end, and this team would be unbelievably fired up heading into next year. That road trip,
Jameson Williams towards
road trip to Fayetteville. Yeah, I know. It looked like you saw that thing in his knee move.
Just throw another 5-star in there; they'll be fine. Moving on.
That's not how it works.
Which quarterback, Prater or Bryant, gives us the best shot at winning in Fayetteville?
Is that even that's a real question?
That's a real question.
The quarterback with experience, Ben Bryant. That's not to say Evan Prater will not be a phenomenal quarterback. That's to say who gives you the best shot to win a game tomorrow?
Mm-hmm.
Ben Bryant.
He's got that action.
I mean, Ben Bryant is such a weird circumstance where he knows the playbook. It is such a strange thing for a team to have that sort of a luxury.
I don't even know that you can say that right now because we don't have an OC.
I mean,
Ben Bryant worked with Gino for 3 years. He knows what Gino wants to do.
Doesn't mean that necessarily the playbook's out there. I mean, the playbook could be vastly different.
Well, then it'd be different for every single player.
And Ben Bryant will be comfortable with it because he knows what Gino wants him to do.
In any case.
If we're looking strictly, the question was strictly,
who
gives them the best chance to win at Arkansas? Ben Bryant.
I agree.
How about this for Alabama real quick? Back-to-back national championship games, they lose their just dominant wide receiver. I mean,
they lost their dominant wide receiver in the SEC championship game in John Mechie.
Yeah, well, and even last year you could say the same thing when they lost. What's his name? The dude that plays for the Dolphins right now, Wattley, yeah. So
and now they're taking Jameson Williams head down back to the locker room.
You hate to see it.
I mean, hopefully he's all right.
Besides quarterback, what position group will you be interested in following during spring ball, and who in that group are ones to look out for? I think we've kind of touched on that as we discussed stuff earlier, but I mean, there's so many positions up for grab. Quarterback, running back, depending on what happens at tight end. We already at least know that Lenny's back. Wide receiver, there's question marks scattered outside of Tyler Scott. Tyler Scott will be on the field.
Trey Tucker will be on the field.
Well, yes.
Will Pauling will be on the field.
I don't know that he's necessarily going to be a starter.
No, he'll be behind Trey Tucker, but he'll be on the field a lot.
Yeah.
I'm not overly worried about wide receiver.
I was just naming places for.
Yeah. I mean, it has to be corner or safety for me.
Yeah.
Those are big.
Corner or safety.
I mean, and the corner, you get Bush back to fill one of those spots. We don't know which one yet. Safety, you get Hicks back. But does he have a NFL quality running mate somewhere on the roster that you can dig up to put next to him? Corner or safety, man. And safety is probably corner. The starting corners are going to come from the group of Arquan Bush, Jaquan Shepard, Todd Bumpus, Sammy Anderson, Justin Harris, potentially a J.Q. Hardaway or a Kellen Carroll as freshmen coming in.
Taj Ward.
Taj Ward will probably be the nickel.
Yeah.
If Bush goes outside, Taj Ward will be the nickel. I'm talking more about the outside.
Yeah, outside. Yeah.
Because that's where Kobe and Sauce, man. That's so I'm talking more about the outside. Those are the guys that I think are going to compete for those outside spots.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of reps that that are going to tell a lot as we go through. And here's the fun: is there's going to be a lot of reps against high-level wide receivers.
Yes.
So we're going to get a good feel of who's good at what.
And then, of course, at safety, Hicks had 2 good seasons as a starter.
Yeah.
But that was with NFL Derek Forrest and NFL Brian Cook. So,
yeah,
who's going to be – those are some –
That's why I said who's going to be the – is it going to be Isaiah Cox? Brian Threats was really the only other guy besides Dingle.
Yeah.
Dingle and Threats were the 2 guys that got some looks at safety this year. And then you have Isaiah Cox, you have Armorion Shepherd, you got some young guys coming in. De'Ari McDonald is still in that mix at safety.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of wiggle room for guys to make a play up that 2 deep.
Yep.
At safety as well. Those will be the 2 positions defensively that I really have my eye on. I think we know defensive line who the top 5 or 6 guys are going to be.
I think linebacker is going to be interesting too, though.
I don't as much. Like if Huber comes back,
mm-hmm.
and if you have Huber, Pace, Van Fossen, Jaheim Thomas, Ivan Pace in that linebacker room,
yeah,
David Jones,
the
other Jack Dingle,
yeah,
Cam Jr.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden, you got a lot of guys in that linebacker room that can play,
right?
That are itching to get on the field. So I'm not as concerned about linebacker as some are, because I think there's 8 guys for those 3 spots,
and multi-positional guys too.
Yeah,
I mean,
I love where they're at linebacker.
Pace and Van Fossen had the split time because they had,
Can you get Pony Boy up? Can you get Pony Boy up 20, 30 pounds to play on the other side, though, is the question. Or do you just stay with what you got and run those 2 as a combo at $/sniper or whatever, and then you fill the other ones accordingly?
Jaheim and then Huber or something like that, yeah.
If Huber comes back.
Would you rather have eyeballs the size of footballs or balls the size of footballs, and why? I'd rather have eyeballs the size of footballs, because good luck finding pants otherwise.
So I had a hernia that was about the size of a lime. And that was really fucking uncomfortable. Left nut. I mean, everybody used to wonder why I wore cargo pants.
Oh, geez.
It was literally because I didn't, doing this job, you don't have great insurance. I had a hernia that was a problem. And it was only the size of a lime. Imagine the size of a football. Like, are we talking like a regulation? Do people understand how many people have actually put their hand on a college-sized, properly inflated football?
Mm-hmm.
Them some bitches are big.
Yeah.
Not testicles. Whatever the other option is, not testicles.
Again, good luck finding pants.
So a buddy of mine.
You didn't think I'd have a story related to that, did you, Aaron?
No one who's listening, whether it be on YouTube, whether it be on iTunes, whether it be on Spotify, it doesn't matter. Whoever's listening to this, in whatever capacity they're listening it to, had an idea that you had a story involving a football-sized testicle. No.
Well, a lime-sized testicle.
By comparison.
Well, here we go. A buddy of mine.
Oh, my God.
Shout out to him.
How do you both have stories about this shit?
He's got Chad, you said lime. This is a legit baseball. Going on the verge of a softball. And
well, depending on the day, on an average day, it was a lime. There were days that was bigger. Yeah.
Well, to the point, he it was like a party trick. You know what I mean? It became a true party trick. It did. It's like, pull them out, show us. What
kind of friends were you?
I mean, hey, it worked for him. I tell you what. But I think that I'd go with I think I'd like to be known as the guy with the football-sized balls. Give them to me. Why not?
Chad, I think less than anyone saw that coming with you, that you had a story relatable, was Brent, of all people, saying that he'd go with moving on.
Football-sized testicles.
Ryan,
They'd make a movie about me. I'd be famous.
You'd be what is it, Stan's dad walking around with a wheelbarrow.
Right?
Anyway, do you think the staff brings in a transfer running back? Does Ethan Wright possibly move to safety to impact that move?
So, based on the next question asked by the same person, I think people have mistook our joking around about Ethan Wright at safety. That joking around is strictly because Luke Fickell always talks about moving Ethan Wright to safety. I don't have any indication that's actually going to happen. I just know if Luke Fickell could reprogram Ethan Wright's brain, he would be playing safety. Ethan Wright wants to be playing running back. So that would have to be a very convincing pitch for Ethan Wright not to be at running back going forward. That's more just of us joking around. We do the same thing a lot with Tyler Scott, who Luke Fickell always jokes around that he's going to be, CB1.
He doesn't want to play defense.
Right. Those guys want to play offense. It's easy to take a guy like Alec Pierce. They tried to make him play defense, and Alec was like, I want to play offense. And you know who was right? Alec Pierce.
Mm-hmm. Well, he did play special teams freshman year. I mean,
he played special teams his whole career.
Was he still out there?
Yeah.
This year? Okay.
Not as much as he was when he was making a name for himself as a freshman, but he was still out there. So.
Yeah, he was out there, but he wasn't as good of a gunner as Myjai Sanders was in the Cotton Bowl. I'll tell you that.
Running back's going to be fascinating, man. Do I think there's still a chance they're kind of keeping their eye on the transfer market? Yes. Do I think it would need to be a specific, this is what we're looking for, perfect fit? I do think that in a way, because I think they like what they have at running back. You're going to have Charles McClellan back with another year of added confidence and strength in his knees. You're going to have Ryan Montgomery. You're going to have Ethan Wright. I want to see what Miles Montgomery looks like in the spring, but I think Miles Montgomery has a chance to be really, really good. And then you're going to get Stephen Bird in here. He's been coming off of, he missed some time his senior year due to an injury. I think it's going to be interesting to see where he's at in his development when he gets here. But ultimately, I think there's a lot of bodies in that running back room. So I guess what I'm saying is you're not panic reaching for a running back. When Mike Warren declared for the draft, they had to go out and get Jerome Ford, right?
Yeah.
Because outside of Dokes, there wasn't much in that room. You had to go get another guy. I don't think they have to go get another guy. I think they're in a position where they can say,
it's a luxury.
If the right thing falls our way, we'll add to the running back room. If not, we like where we're at.
Well, and how about also, you mentioned Chuck McClellan getting another season or an off season, trying to, gain his confidence back and everything. I think the more that Ryan Montgomery continues to train and the more that he continues to have off seasons piled on top.
I talked about that with Ryan in the interview I did with him a couple of weeks ago about how each passing season he's gotten more and more confident on that knee again.
Right. And I mean his run against USF, if you go back and watch that, that is a big elite running back run. That's a spinning out of a tackle, turning on the afterburners. That is a big time run. So he's got it in him. He's shown it numerous times.
If there's a thought that you can just dip into the transfer portal and get Jerome Ford, you wrong. Because Jerome Ford ran away from everybody, right? He ran away from dudes in the Peach Bowl last year that anchored the best defense in the country this year. Yeah. There wasn't nobody that ran away from Georgia over the past 2 seasons like Jerome Ford did.
Right.
So if the thought is, well, we'll just go get another Jerome Ford in the transfer portal, there's a chance Jerome Ford was the best running back to ever play at Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a crazy person statement.
Well, I mean, who would you compare him to? Warren, Dokes, and Pede?
I mean, I would have him above Warren and Dokes.
That's what I'm saying. It's like the only comparison that you would have to Jerome Ford would be
Pede.
Warren, Dokes, and Pede, and yeah, I think he echelons all of them.
So we'll see. I think they're comfortable with where they're at running back. If they can add a guy they think can make a Jerome Ford type impact, then they would obviously look into that, because you're also going to have the luxury, as we've talked about, of playing behind a very experienced veteran offensive line going into 2022.
The follow-up question that you mentioned that Ryan asked, were there any positional moves of note in bowl prep to keep an eye on in the spring besides Ethan Wright at safety?
No, this was not an experimental bowl prep season. This was, we're trying to win a championship. So there wasn't a lot of screwing around, right? There was a week of like getting the younger guys some live action.
Yeah,
but there wasn't a whole lot of like, let's get, usually when that happens, okay? I think this is a great point to make, and I thank you for that question, because I think it allows me to make this point. Usually bowl prep, for the first 5-7 bowl practices, the coaches look at as an extension of spring ball, right? Like, they look at it as the beginning of spring football.
Right.
That wasn't the case this year. They were trying to get their ducks in a row.
It was actual practice.
Right. Like, it wasn't glorified like spring ball, and then the week of the game you get ready for the game and you go into your normal game week.
Right.
Yeah,
this was like an eye on Alabama the whole time.
Big work to be done.
Right.
There was a question that we got before moving forward in the actual mailbag here in the comments. Mark Pinkerton asks, do you think Deshaun Pace moves to safety next season? Is it an option? Seems like it would work.
I wouldn't mess with playing him where he's best at. I think he's best at that sniper, dollar, hybrid safety linebacker position.
Yeah, I think they're like he has a good frame to add weight, and I think he's been slowly bulking up and adding weight as well. So
I think he's a box guy. Like, that's what it comes down to, right? So if you're playing him at safety, then you're playing single high safety, because Deshaun Pace is going to be in the box more often than not. You look at how many plays Deshaun Pace made in the box, and think about taking him out of the box for 30 snaps a game.
Right.
You don't expect him to get anywhere near like Beaver's weight that he put on or anything like that.
No, of course not. No. Beavers is 6'5", though.
I mean, that was still an absurd amount of weight to put on, from going from built like a defensive back to built like a...
Yeah, but he played, like, people forget when they talk about that. He was a defensive end at UConn.
Which is...
He was in the 230. He was a light defensive end, but he was in the 230, 240 range at UConn. So
there was just that picture that went around of him in a mirror his freshman year compared to where he was at now.
Yeah, of course.
So anyway, moving on.
He's also the example of why you recruit guys that are 6'3", 190 pounds, because sometimes they become guys that are 6'5" and 260 pounds.
Yeah. All right. Names to watch on defense from the 20 and 21 classes that haven't seen the field much but could pop next year. 3 total, no order.
Wattley.
I know they have always been really high on Isaiah Cox. They thought he was the best defensive back in that 2020 class. And every time I saw Isaiah Cox, he was at the hip of Brian Cook. So that kid learned what being a dog is about. So my number one, he's got the length, he's got the athleticism. I think he's got the mentality. I'm really excited for Isaiah Cox going into spring football. I think he can be a guy that all of a sudden we're talking about, is he a 1B or is he a 1A, right? Like, and that's without seeing what he looks like as a 1B or a 1A, because he was a scout team guy and, it didn't really get special teams reps because special teams were so littered with veterans this year, unlike years in the past. But I'm excited to see the progression and the future of Isaiah Cox. That's my number one. Who you guys got as your number one?
I'd say Will Pauling.
Defense.
I'm sorry, defense. I hadn't given that any thought. You go first then, Brent. You were ready for
I didn't read the question. Sorry.
I was looking ahead to other things. It's fine.
Number one, I'll go with Jaheim.
Jaheim was 19 though, right?
No, he's 20.
20, okay. Sorry.
Yeah. So I'm just because I think he'll probably end up in the starter's role. And then since we're gonna probably do a little bit of a snake thing while Aaron continues to talk, my 1A and 1B to go off the whole Cincinnati motives. I'll go with Justin Wattley. I've loved Justin Wattley from the get-go. And I think he's gonna finally have that opening to see some, be right there on that depth chart as a 1A, 1B, and he's gonna really just have a monster off season. He's got athletic ability, and I think he just fits that role of a defensive lineman that just is getting a bunch of reps and just funneling through, and you just see him out there making plays. I mean, Wattley was a monster whenever he played this year. I just can't wait to see what he can do with more time available.
What about Sammy? I think I'd go with Sammy Anderson.
The fascinating thing for me is the Sammy Bumpus competition.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Those two have been
right
neck and neck. So which one in spring ball takes that mantle and runs with it? Because I think it's going to be one of them. I would fully expect one of Todd Bumpus or Sammy Anderson to be a starter in 2022. Mm-hmm. I just have no clue which one. My personal viewing has been that Bumpus to this point has an edge.
He's seen the field a little bit more.
Slight edge.
Yeah.
But that's not to say that Sammy's not going to take a jump in this offseason. Those two, I love that competition.
Those are both above Jaquan?
Well, Shep has been – Shep is 19, so he's not eligible for this question.
Well, no, I know.
But Shep has been the heir apparent to Sauce on the boundary as his number 2.
Yeah.
We'll see if one of those guys pushes. What happens if Bush does move field?
Well, I just go back to the spring game last year where Sammy was unhinged.
Yeah.
And
they both have great talent.
That's where my head is at in this question. Now, if we're going with because you already gave your 2, Brent, and if I'm going to give 2, then I would say Dingle.
You're going
Jack
or Jacob?
Jack. I think Jack Dingle would be my number 2.
I don't hate it. He is a massive human.
Well, and when he was on the field, had he not ended up getting the targeting call, I think he had.
You're thinking of Jacob.
That was
the
Jacob.
Safety.
You're right.
The safety.
You're right. But yeah,
Jack is the freshman linebacker.
Jack is the linebacker. So yes, I'm talking the safety. Sorry. But if he hadn't gotten the targeting call, I think we would have gotten to see what he was all about in that particular game. I don't even remember what game that was. That was early on, I believe, in conference play. But in any case, that would be my number 2, who could potentially make an impact.
I don't hate the Jack Dingle.
At linebacker?
That kid has something special about him that I think maybe you experiment and see, can he come off the edge? He's big, man. You saw him, Aaron, at Squat Fest.
You've called him Adonis.
Like, you saw him at Squat Fest, and you were like, also like, oh, that's a 18-year, like that's a freshman in high school.
Right.
He's gonna have a lot of fun here.
Yeah.
Jack Dingle wouldn't shock me if they found a way to get Jack Dingle on the field.
How crazy would that be if in any defensive sequence over the course of the season they have Pace and Dingle out there as
right?
4 of your 11.
Better pace your Dingles, man.
Jesus Christ!
All right, so who you got as your third, Chad, and we'll wrap back around.
Man,
because we're only halfway through the football bag.
I know.
Yeah,
I know.
Let's
We're
speed
going
this
long.
up. Let's speed this up.
We're going long.
It's my girlfriend's birthday. We gotta go.
Is she quarantined? Like, what is she in health and safety protocol with you?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why.
Oh boy,
had nothing to do with the game. That's why you want to start at 7:30.
Yeah, he was like, "Can we start early for the championship game? Can we start early?" Third, defense. God, why does it have to be? I think we've touched on everybody.
I'd say Corleone is my third.
Okay.
Threats for me.
Dominique Perry. I'll go with a sleeper.
Right.
Deep sleeper, Dominique Perry.
All right, let's move on.
No, I'll go Eric Phillips.
All right.
I'll go Eric Phillips.
Still moving on. Way too early projections. What do you see as a successful 2022 campaign given recruits and returning players?
Competing to play in the American Athletic Conference Championship into the final 2 weeks of the season. And ultimately making the American Athletic Conference Championship game and rolling the dice from there. Seeing where you go from there.
I'll set the bar a little lower. I say double-digit wins would be successful. I think anything beyond that.
If you get double-digit wins, you're accomplishing what I just said.
Why are you yelling at me?
Because I'm
I think
passionate about this response.
I think you could get 10 and still not be in the championship.
Do you think they beat Arkansas to open the season?
I don't know what Arkansas has. I have not done any type of dive into Arkansas.
Okay, so answer my question.
Top 15 team in the country.
Top 15 team in the country coming into the season.
No.
Do you win at Arkansas?
No.
Okay, well then if you get 10 wins in the regular season, that means you only lose one other game. And if you only lose one other game, you are competing for an American Conference Championship berth over the last couple weeks of the season and getting into the American Athletic Conference Championship game.
Okay.
So
I think
these nuts.
I think the train keeps rolling.
Thanks, Saban.
Train keeps rolling. I think success is playing in the AAC championship game, like you said, Chad. And so yeah, I think, and I do think they're going to play in it. Win it, yeah. I think
we'll see.
The eternal optimist strikes again.
Well, I mean, it's just true.
I can't think of two other teams that are going to be better than them in the American Athletic Conference Championship right now.
I mean, are you going to put all your dice on Mikey Keene and see how the old UCF does? And Houston's going to be good, but I mean, I don't know. It's just
is Clayton Tune still Houston's quarterback next year?
Yeah,
quite possibly.
Are you fucking serious?
Yeah.
Thanks, COVID. All right. How many more 22 guys does UC target? Any names emerging, or will the rest be filled with transfers? I think we've hit that abundantly.
I've answered this question podcast 46 fucking times, Bearcat Nation 11. Read the message board. I know you read every word we say.
About recruiting.
Yes.
Yeah.
They have not right now been focused on high school 2022 guys.
How many spots are open, though? Do you know how that off the top of your head?
There's a handful.
We'll see what the next week brings, because this week was like post-Christmas. It's like those Christmases you have with like some of the outside relatives or like
here's the problem.
Family friends where you're still getting gifts.
Let's say I answer that question and say UC's not going to target any more 2022 high school kids. And 6 weeks from now, some kid asks out of his letter of intent and is back on the market. And UC grabs him. Now I'm the idiot because Bearcat Nation 11 asked for the 47th time this same question, and I try to give him a different answer.
All
Stay
right.
tuned. As it happens, we'll let you know.
On to the basketball part of the 513shirts.com mailbag, where don't forget you can get free shipping on all orders over $45 and enter code BCJ for 10% off. Have you
Plus
noticed
the Malik Van collection, 15% off.
There you go. Have you noticed how JD changed his shooting motion on his threes? He's shooting more controlled and not flailing his legs, or am I the only one who noticed that? I think he's just
shooting in rhythm.
He's right. He's just taking better shot. His shot selection has been better.
When you're shooting out of rhythm, your legs flail and you're not balanced. He is doing more of what the coaches are asking from him, which is shooting in rhythm, feet set, shoulders squared, bang the shot. So that's what you're watching.
Bang.
When you watch flailing legs, you're watching a guy shooting off balance. Shooting off balance is bad. They would like for him not to do that as much. You know why he's most effective on those corner threes? Because he's set, catching in rhythm, and taking a good shot.
Best catch and shoot guy on the team. Brent, I thought you were trying to add something at one point here.
I thought he was trying to die.
The word is confidence. That's it. When he's shooting with confidence like that, like you said, set with confidence, he's not flailing all over the place, and they knock down.
After Tyler Harris made it 83-80, would you have called timeout to set up a play, understanding we need a three? Who takes that shot? I think Wes said
I've answered this to an extent.
Right.
Wes got the play he wanted coming up the floor. They just didn't execute it right. So if you call a timeout, he was going to call the same play because it was a play that had worked over and over again to keep Cincinnati hanging around as Memphis was throwing haymakers. They got the play that they wanted. They didn't get the execution that they wanted. Who takes that shot? If you can get a rhythm look for Jeremiah, you get a rhythm look for Jeremiah. If the shot's being taken with somebody dribbling or with the ball in their hand, it's to Julius. Especially that game.
Yeah, I want to give the ball to David. Let him do what he does.
Which coach gets the bulk of dissecting the tape of the opposition regarding tendencies and how to slow down an opposing player and some of the best matchups to play against an opposing player? Example, who would be easiest player to screen, who doesn't go under a screen, or who sags on defense to allow a pass to an open player?
So the coaches don't have to dissect that anymore. That is all in synergy. Everything you could ever imagine is broken down in synergy by situation. How does this guy do in high ball screens? How does this guy do in side ball screens? How does this guy do against zone? All of that is all dissected by the people that run synergy, and it's all automatically dialed up by logging into the system. So coaches don't have to dissect that tape anymore. It's already done, basically.
That's wild.
Yeah, you go into synergy, you pull up, Tyler Harris high ball screen, and you get all the clips of Tyler Harris operating in a high ball screen all season.
What's it cost on the black market for logins to synergy?
Berg used to have one. Berg used to pay for his own high-end synergy account.
That's crazy.
Dude, I tried to get. No, you got to get it from somebody.
You got to know somebody.
You have to be
now.
Coach.
It used to be you could get it. Now you got to know somebody.
Well, you can get like the knockoff one that doesn't have all the videos. Like you can pay for that, but you have to be a coach in order to get the real one. Yeah.
You got to know somebody.
Knew enough people, Brent, that you.
I mean, I could get it probably, but I mean.
That's how Berg used to write his scouting reports. Is he would literally, you think writing your scouting reports take a long time? Berg would go spend 6 to 8 hours watching synergy of each player on each team, how they do in each situation. And then he would write his scouting reports based on 6 hours of research.
Yeah.
No wonder he got burnt out writing for BCJ.
Yeah, no wonder he's not here writing anymore.
Man.
It's a lot, man. Like, and the thing is, that's like any rabbit hole. Like once you put your head in a rabbit hole, there ain't no coming out for a long time. And he would hit me up at 5:00 and be like, all right, I'm getting started on this. And then he would hit me back up at midnight and all right, I'm about ready to write the story. Like that was 7 hours, dude. You spent 7 hours watching tape. He's like, yeah, I think I got a pretty good handle on East Texas State.
I don't want to talk about it.
I think I got a good handle on East Texas State. I'll get you a good one. I'll get you a good one tomorrow for a game that, Cincinnati was going to win 87-43.
All right. The unceremonious departure of Eddie Sutton left the UK basketball program in ruins and at ground zero circa 1989. Why anyone knows that is beyond me. The UC basketball program was at ground zero in mid-April 2021 with no coach and less than 5 players. A foursome of hardworking non-superstars rebuilt a program under a new young coach named Patino. Am I reading the beginning of a book?
Are we writing a movie script?
Are we watching the foundation of a foursome in Woods, DeJulius, Davenport, and Newman that put the program rebuild on their shoulders under Wes? Fair analogy. And does Skillings
it's not fair.
And does Skillings have Mashburn potential?
They made a Final Four and won one of the greatest, played in one of the greatest games in NCAA basketball history. Or they didn't make a Final Four. They lost in the Elite Eight. Duke made the Final Four. Come on, guys. Come on.
That was deep.
It was well written. Somebody in Hollywood might buy that script. Do we have to compare it to one of the greatest rebuilds in the history of the sport? Just is Daniel Skillings Jamal Mashburn? I don't know.
Mashburn was physical. He was a brute, not a long wing.
That has only been playing basketball since 10th grade.
I didn't know that.
He's only in 12th grade.
That's impressive. All right.
Never. It never picks up again. We're done. We're done. Recruiting never picks up again. It's closed. Recruiting is closed. They're not doing it anymore.
I couldn't even read it. Of course, that question comes from Bearcat Nation 11. When does recruiting pick up?
It's like my arch nemesis on the podcast.
It's better than Skins. He's not trying to off you.
He's not trying to off me. He's trying to off you.
Yeah, I'm aware.
Never. They're never recruiting again. They're done.
Ever.
No.
All right, and we are now to the Banks portion of 513shirts.com mailbag.
He's done How I Met Your Mother, so we're going to skip this part and do the next part, which is
the Full House part.
Full House, yeah.
Which I do have here from PDT Bearcat. He wants us to to use Full House to debate whether Brent or Aaron is Uncle Joey. I think
Brent is Joey.
I agree.
1,000%.
I agree.
He's doing the
cut it out.
Cut it out. That is you to a T, Brent.
I totally picture him with a woodchuck on his hand,
right.
being Ranger Joe over here too.
I could do it.
Right. That is you. That is almost like your birthright to be Uncle Joey.
Brent and I have also been working on a little barbershop quartet to be able to sing lullabies to children. So
you got a surprisingly good voice, Aaron. I'll give it to you.
You're welcome. Cut it out. That all said, yeah, I don't know. I don't know who I would be. I feel like
I'm not Danny Tanner because I'm much more Bob Saget's I suck dick for coke. You ever suck dick for some weed? That's my Bob Saget.
The dirty old, like his actual comedian career,
right.
not anything to do with Full House.
I'm not Full House Bob Saget. So
I would
maybe
say
I'm Uncle Jesse, but I don't even buy that. Maybe
I would say I'm Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I was just gonna say I'd either be Uncle Jesse or I'd be Steve, the boyfriend, like who was like kind of a dumb idiot.
Right? I think that's probably yeah.
But either way,
who's Danny Tanner in this bunch?
Brett.
He is corny as fuck. Yeah, so it could be Brett.
Either that or Mick. I don't know. I don't think Mick's corny.
Mick's a young Danny Tanner.
But he's just so hyper focused on recruiting the way that Danny was on cleaning.
Right? Mick hasn't had a life tragedy like his wife dying while he had three kids.
Mick's not quite dad yet. You know?
Right.
He's
dad in training.
Yeah, he could get there.
Brett is Danny Tanner. You are so right. You nailed that. You absolutely nailed it. Geno couldn't be Danny Tanner because Geno, like, he's got anger issues.
I don't think.
And then Aaron, are you Jesse then?
Like I said, I'd either be Jesse or Steve.
Okay.
I think only because of Kelly, I could be Uncle Jesse.
Maybe.
But I'm not that pretty. Like,
Kelly's also not going to jail to try and get Kelsey into a university either.
She might. No, I wouldn't put that past her. She's ride or die. She's been with me for 21 fucking years. You think she's not ride or die?
I'm aware.
That is ride or die.
The follow-up question, what fabulous locales will Brent be visiting for weddings? And what games will he miss this year due to upcoming nuptials?
Arkansas and Indiana, Brent. Are you available?
So I actually forced.
No, I'm not. He already knows the fucking answer.
I told them no more of these, but I know that they're planning like Spain is one that they're.
Oh my god!
Discussing.
Spain,
yeah.
Are you going to a visa for a wedding?
Well, I don't know where in Spain, but somewhere. But that's a possibility. And then Michigan is one, somewhere up in Michigan. There's a couple other, but
I'm just wondering when his own nuptials are going to interrupt the Bearcats football season.
Oh, he's going to take a month off for that.
Believe me, that'll be.
Just make sure it doesn't
right in the thick of baseball season.
Make sure it doesn't overlap basketball season because I don't want to write another preview.
Where are you going to for your wedding? Like New Zealand? Is Brent's wedding in New Zealand?
That's actually New Zealand's very pretty. I might actually throw it out there.
Antarctica.
Something crazy. I'm down. Who knows? Throw a dart and we'll go there. Why not?
Like the fourth day of higher ground, I find out, hey man, sorry, I'm going to New Zealand for the next 8 weeks for my wedding. I'll try to write what I can if I can get the game on the internet. But I'm sorry, brother. Like,
man, trying to watch the Miami game in Ireland was insanely difficult. It was just like I gave up after the first quarter. I was like,
I know. I know you did.
We'll see if we. Kelsey's gone to bed at this point, right?
3 minutes is her bedtime.
All right. Well, we'll hold off on this question then. For one, we have one last question before this Kelsey question. We'll bring her in on the end because we know how she likes to.
If there's a Kelsey question, I have to bring her in right now.
All right. Well,
if this is a question,
it is.
Kelsey!
Should have muted you for that. In hindsight.
Well, I didn't have any other option.
Mute is the other option. And then while she's coming, what are your thoughts on the Raiders versus Bengals wild card game?
No, she's here. Stop.
Okay.
Aaron has a question for you. Talk into the microphone.
Hi, Kelsey. One of the mailbag questions is, what is your go-to thing that you know will trigger your dad asking for a friend? What sets dad off?
When I yell at mom.
Oh, okay. Seems about right. Anything else? Just for fun?
You're not allowed to yell at mom.
No.
That's all your answer?
I'll pass my bedtime.
All right. Well, then we'll let you go to bed. That was your answer.
Yeah. You got 2 minutes.
No, I I want to go to bed.
No,
Bye,
it's too
Kelsey.
late.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Thanks, Kelsey.
Who's winning the Georgia versus Alabama game? Alabama?
Alabama 9-6.
All right.
Wow.
It's
Alabama
halftime.
sucks.
See,
So,
this
Alabama sucks.
Georgia
this-
has to win.
this was why I wanted to wait for the last question. P.S. Long live Westside Jesus and air fryers. All right. Last question then. What are your thoughts on Raiders versus Bengals wildcard game? Does Cincy win, and do they cover? I will look up the spread in the
6.5.
meantime. Is it 6.5?
Yep.
Bengals favorite?
If they can keep those two defensive ends off of Joe Burrow, Cincinnati wins.
I like Cincy in the cover.
I agree. I like Cincy in the cover as well. And I think that it's finally come full circle. The curse of Bo Jackson has to be over as we're playing the Raiders, this new regime that only 4 players were even alive the last time the Bengals won a playoff game. I think this is it.
Hey, how funny is that stat that's been floating around that no one has ever texted about a Bengals win, because the last time they won was
Bengals
before
playoff win.
texting. Bengals playoff win, because the last time that the Bengals won a playoff game was before texting was even invented.
That
Before the
stat
first
started
text
floating
was
around a couple years ago, and it keeps resurfacing every time.
Yeah, it's hilarious, but I think it keeps resurfacing right now because a little bit of
get it.
Might change.
We'll do a little bit deeper dive on that on Pardon the Punctuation tomorrow.
Look at it. Look at him go. Look at him go.
Got you. All right.
I'm out tomorrow night. Like you guys do your thing tomorrow.
We have a guest tomorrow night, so we'd be
Ooh.
all right.
Do you want to tease it? You want to tease it?
Somebody complained last week that I needed to let you guys talk. I
Well,
talk too much.
there is an unveiling of sorts happening tomorrow night, and it will pertain to both the Bengals and the Bearcats. So,
J.K. Schaefer.
no.
Also, we have a new hire at Bearcat Journal to announce this week. I'm not sure when exactly we're going to announce it.
Because you're not doing BCJ on Wednesday, right? Because of the game?
Yeah, I guess we'll have to do Thursday. Are you dancing? What are you?
Yeah, I'm ready for this to be over.
Yeah.
Good night. Love you. Okay. Then let's go.
All right. Again,
Okay.
that was the 513shirts.com mailbag where you can get free shipping on all orders over $45. Enter code BCJ for 10% off plus 15% off for the Malik Van collection.
Boom. Very good. Well, thank you, 513shirts.com. Thank you, Danco Transmission. Crazy deal going
$80
on.
off. This week only, between now and next Monday, between the time now and the start of this show next Monday, $80 off any repair, service, whatever you need. You just need to show that you're a member of Bearcat Journal,
I know something else that
and you
makes
get
me
it.
mad.
Oh, hold on. She knows something else that makes her mad.
When I buy Squishmallows.
I don't even know what that means. Brent,
don't
sign
know
us
what-
out of here.
You don't know what Squishmallows are? You're lucky. You're very
I'm
lucky.
gonna get one.
No, we're done. We're out. We're out. Get out.
Out of here.
Well,
Go to bed.
Special thanks to everybody again for our good friends, Kelsey and Chad Brendel and Aaron Smith. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Brent Young. This was, cute little thing there. This has been another edition of the BBP presented by BearcatJournal.com.
See ya.